All right, let's get started. Welcome again to this webinar about key features and improvements in our recent release of Origin Pro 2022B. My name is Ishwar Iyer, Product Manager at Origin Lab. During the webinar, please feel free to use the chat window or the Q&A window in WebEx to ask questions and post comments. Don't be shy, please ask questions. My colleagues James and Jen have joined as well as panelists, so they'll help answer the questions as well. I'll keep an eye on the questions and try to answer them as well. We are recording this webinar, and this Origin project related data and the recording will all be available to you after the webinar. You will get an email with information on where to access it. Okay. So 2022B was released earlier this month. Let me open the version history page on our website. Okay, so this page is in fact our main support page. You can get to it from Support Help Center as well. Okay, there are many useful links here that you may wish to browse, such as video tutorials, graph gallery, user studies, etc. And here is the software release history link. So let me just click that to open to show you that in recent years, we have been releasing 2 versions every year. One around April. This year it was a little delayed to May. So end of April, early May. And another around late October, sometimes early November. Okay. So if you have Origin latest version with a maintenance contract, you are eligible to 2 new releases every year. Okay, and to learn more about 2022B by yourself, there is a highlights page. Let me get to that as well. Okay, let me first go to our home page, originlab.com. So right there, the latest version always has a link right around the middle left half. So if you click on that icon, it will take you to the highlights page. Okay, so the highlights page will give you details of all the key features, and there may be links to blogs and videos and such over here. And at the end of the page, there is also information on how do you get the version, and there is also a link to our playlist on YouTube with videos about features, and we keep adding new videos, both long videos as well as very short ones for specific features. So you might want to check out our YouTube channel as well. Okay. All right, so let's get started going through the features. I have in this project, I have organized folders with data and related data files, etc. And as I mentioned, you will be getting an email with a link where you can download the project and the recording as well. So I'm following more or less the same order as on that web page, not necessarily in any preferential order. So let me just go through each item. Some may resonate with you, some may not. Okay. So the first thing to look at is SVG Export. As you know, we have supported many different export formats for graphs and layout in Origin. If you have a graph or layout open, from the File menu, you can go to Export Graph. In recent versions, we split this to 2 menu items. We have an Export Graphs Advanced, which is an older dialog, which has a lot more controls. And we have a simpler dialog, Export Graphs. And let me open the simpler dialog. So this simple dialog lets you take a graph or a layout, and you can decide what name to use for the export file, such as the long name or a particular string. You can use your own notation, such as including the PE Project Explorer folder, etc. This is all documented. You can press F1 to read. You can specify a file path. In my case, I chose project folder. So the export file will go right into where the folder is, where the project is saved in the folder. There is a size factor, and there is also image type. And we put the popular image types here. In the other export, you might find more types. So I've chosen SVG, and let's go ahead and export this. Okay. Once exported, I can navigate to my webinars, and there is my diagram. Okay, the SVG file. I do not have an editor such as Adobe Illustrator to open it. Let me just double click and it will just open in Microsoft Edge browser, which supports SVG, just to show you that the export came through okay. Okay, so here's the export. I can use the control key to zoom in or zoom out. You can see it's a vector format, of course, because SVG is vector. Just wanted to point out to you that if you have an editor such as Adobe Illustrator, then you would be able to open the SVG file and make edits to individual elements, such as a particular label or objects in the graph, etc. And this is something customers have often asked. Some customers use Adobe Illustrator or similar software to put together origin graphs and other components to make their final manuscript. So hope this SVG export will be useful to you. Okay. Just a note that in older versions, we had an Adobe Illustrator export, which has been phased out because that library is very old, and we just decided to support SVG instead. Next, this is a small improvement. Here I have a workbook. In the workbook, as you know, similar to Excel, you can have multiple tabs, okay, with data and reports, etc., such as the nonlinear curve fit report here. What we have added in this version are a couple of new buttons. There is a button to add sheets, to quickly add a sheet. Previously, you had to right click on a tab to add sheet. Okay. Another button we added is one for showing or hiding the book organizer. You may or may not be familiar with the book organizer. The book organizer is a lower panel which shows you all the components of the book. You can click on each sheet and review information here. Okay, for example, you can even type your own notes into these sheets to annotate so that you can share with your colleagues. You can also look at variables that may be extracted. So in my case, I had used a certain import routine to bring in metadata and create variables from them. Okay, so the book organizer has all those capabilities. Maybe it's a bit underused because people have not known about it. Previously, you had to right click on the title to view organizer. Okay, so we just made it easier to open or expand or collapse right from the using this new button itself. Okay. Again, don't be shy, ask questions. You can use the chat window or Q&A window. We'll be happy to answer your questions as we go along. Okay, next feature, users have often struggled with organizing windows. So here there are many windows. I have some worksheets, I have some graphs, I have some notes, etc. How to nicely arrange them or cascade them. Okay, so I'm going to just hide this particular notes window that I had. Those were just notes for me. So these are the windows I want to organize. So under the window menu, we had tile vertical, tile horizontal. We also had cascade before. Now we have added arrange windows. You could choose these, of course, but arrange windows, excuse me, arrange windows will give you an option to open a small dialog. So let me open that dialog. And here you can decide how to arrange. Okay, you can choose, do you want to arrange them by the order in which they appear in Project Explorer? Or do you want to arrange by, the name ascending? Do you want to use the long name or the short name to decide? Do you want to sort it by window type so that same windows group together? Do you want to arrange it vertically first or horizontally first? Do you want to overlap each columns? You can do all this and click apply. Okay, and then they are nicely arranged. You can also save all of these settings as a theme, and you can load the theme. So I have a theme here that I had used earlier with these settings. I can load the theme and make changes. So for example, I want a larger offset or overlap, so I can apply. And now you can see, let me close this dialog. Now you can see all my books are arranged together, graphs together, notes together. Okay. So flexible way of managing your workspace. Another nice feature in this new version is when windows are touching close to each other, they behave as if they have snapped together. So this green bar appears. So I can pull this green bar to resize all three of these together. Okay, and I can slide as well. to make my graph larger, my notes smaller, or whatever it is that I want to do. So windows that touch each other and close to each other will have this feature of snapping together. You can look at the documentation. There are ways to turn off the snapping if it annoys you. Some customers specifically asked for this because they saw it in some other software, so we implemented it. Okay. Let me know if I am speaking too fast. I can slow down. You're welcome to ask questions. Any comments? Use the Q&A window or the chat window. The next feature I want to talk about is rich text. Okay, so here I have a nice notes window with some nicely formatted text that my colleague James shared with me. So you can see there is a nice title, there is paragraph formatting. You can even have equations, you can have graphs, you can have images. So you can put together a nice document inside Origin itself to create notes that stay with your project. So when you share with your colleagues, you can share with them. And these kind of rich text formatted notes, you can simply go to the file and print and use a PDF driver. If you have Windows 10, you'll have a Microsoft PDF driver automatically installed. You can use that to print it even as PDF. We don't support export, but you can print it. So I'm going to take some time explaining how this feature works. Okay. So as you can see, very useful for formatting and creating notes inside of Origin. So let me first, so this is a notes window. Let me just open another notes window. There are a couple of ways of doing that. If I have a workbook, I can even right click on a tab and say, add notes as sheet. So if there is a notes window already floating around, it will pull it in. If there is no notes window, then it'll create a new one. Okay. Just a moment while it does that. Okay. So then the notes get embedded into this particular book, but I can double click anytime to open it. Okay. Now you can, let me start another notes window to start everything from scratch. So a new notes window can be started with this button or from the file new menu. When you load the notes window, you will see some instructions here. From main menu, choose notes, load samples. Right click on text to apply styles. Right click to insert images, etc. So let me just show you basically how this works. I can say this is my heading and this is my paragraph text with some long lines of text, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And all I need to do once I type or copy paste text from elsewhere is I can simply right click and I can apply style. So I can say make this a heading 1. Okay, so Origin is adding formatting syntax, and this is our own syntax. It's the Origin rich text syntax. But you don't need to really learn the syntax because it's all interactive. You can right click and apply style. So I can make this into a paragraph text. Okay, body text, for example, and I can simply use Control M, which is to render. So if I hit Control M, it will show me what I have so far. I hit Control M again, it goes back to edit mode. So Control M essentially toggles between the rendered view and the edit view. Okay, I can go to notes window, load samples, and load this built-in styles.txt, for example. It's going to replace my text here. Then you can see this particular example gives you all possible formatting. So if I double click, you can see there is numbering, numbered list, bulleted list, inserting pictures, etc. Many different options for creating your own notes inside of Origin. Okay, I'm going to show a few more specific examples with this. Okay, let's look at inserting. Okay, you can insert graphs, you can insert images, you can insert tables, you can even insert LaTeX equations. So let's look at a few examples of that. I have a graph here that I have performed curve fitting on some data with a particular equation by Gaussian equation. And I have my report sheet from which I have copied the parameters table to a separate sheet, and I have formatted it nicely with some colors and such. So let me see how I can put this all together into notes. Okay, so I start with the new notes window. I'm just going to right click and go to the insert menu, and first let me insert the graph. Okay, you can see there are many different options here. Actually, if I have the graph active, I think then maybe it will show. Yeah, if I have the graph active, then it will show insert the graph that was active before you came to this window. So it will insert with a certain syntax that's specific to our rich text formatting. So if I do Control M, you can see it's rendering. If I want to insert an equation, I can right click and I can go to insert and choose, let's see, insert and choose LaTeX equation. Now, you may know this already, Origin provides a free app called LaTeX, which was there before. It could be used in earlier versions to insert equations into a graph or into worksheets. We have expanded that to notes as well now. You can type in your LaTeX expression here. I'm just going to load a predefined expression for my by Gaussian. These are all fitting functions that we have in Origin for which we have LaTeX expressions. So you can see here that this is the LaTeX for that particular function. So I can then click the preview button to preview the equation. Okay. And click OK. And then if I hit Control M, it will render that equation. Okay. It uses MikTeX in the background to make the rendering. Okay. Let me show you how to insert a worksheet. We don't have a menu for it right now. So I'm going to just copy this particular syntax. And what I want to insert is book 8 and parameters tab. So I can go here and type in the syntax book 8 parameters. Okay, and if I hit Control M, it will render that, and you can see it carried over the colors and the formatting, etc. The digits and the centering of the text, everything came through. Okay, so it's that simple. It's all easy, interactive. Right click, you can insert images, you can insert links from to websites, etc. Many different options here. You can insert symbol map. Okay, let me quickly show an image from file. I can go pick a particular image from my file and it will insert with a certain syntax. Click Control M, there is my image. Okay, so that's how my colleague James put together this document with relevant equations and image and a graph to put together a nice report inside Origin. Just a side note, we also have a layout window. You may be familiar with that. It's like a single slide of PowerPoint. We don't support multiple slides in the page, just a single slide. I have placed an image here. Now I can right click in the layout window and insert notes text. That will create a note, and here I can do whatever I want with my text and click the, sorry. Let's see, I can say, this is my heading, okay? And I'll need to refresh it. Okay, so there it is. I can double click and say, okay, make it a heading style. So I can go to paragraph styles and say, make it heading and Control M. Then if I go here and refresh it, it will show me that. The point I'm trying to raise here is in a layout window, you can have multiple such subsections of text, okay? And you can render them and you can insert them. This gives you more flexibility for creating a nice slide with better positioning of text, etc. Okay. Now, related to all this, under the notes window, so let me make a notes window active. Under the notes window, we saw load samples. There is also add links, and there is also a syntax option here. By the way, Origin rich text is what I am showing you right now. You may be familiar that in recent versions of Origin, we already supported HTML and Markdown. So if you are familiar with HTML and Markdown, you could use that instead. Rich text just gives you more flexibility because it's under our control. So we can support things like LaTeX equation and tables and other things inside Origin. Okay. Now, there is also menus. Under the tool menu, there's a text style manager. Okay. Just wanted to point out that tool. This manager can be used to edit any of the existing text styles. Origin ships with a bunch of text styles. They are all listed here. You can edit them. For example, I can go to heading 1 and the color has been set to green. I can say, no, I want it to be blue. Okay, then from now on, the heading color would be blue. You could also create your own new style and save it, and then simply go to the notes window and apply new styles. Somebody is asking, can the note be imported, converted into Word later? No, sorry. This is for inside Origin. So the best you can do is to print that as a PDF. So it's mainly a tool for sharing notes within the project for your own note-taking needs, as well as sharing with colleagues. Okay. All right. Hope this feature is useful. We would appreciate feedback on it from you because it's fairly new, and we can spend more time in refining this and adding more features to this area if it's of interest to users in general for creating notes. Okay. Now, notes can also be added to individual cells rather than a particular note sheet. Okay, so here I have a couple of examples. Any cell you can click, and there is a icon here in the mini toolbar to insert a note. That will insert a note. You can type something there. Okay, then that note will stay there. I can click and I can right click here. Sorry, I can click here and then I can do further formatting, editing it, and then I can change the styles. Whatever styles I showed you before, such as heading, etc., can be applied to such notes and then can be put back in here. Okay, so I did that to a FX cell here. You can see that this particular book that my colleague James made, he wrote some Python code to create group mean from columns A and B. So we use this notes feature to show you that you can even embed detailed notes in here. So if somebody hovers, they can even read it. Okay, this was using Python code. What does the code look like? Okay, so you can use it that way. You can also use it for other annotation. For example, here I have IR spectra for hexane, toluene, and benzene, and I have embedded images for these molecules. Okay, so if I click here, if I click here, and if I go to edit mode, you can see it's using a particular syntax. It's saying %x is the location of the project. So in the project folder, I have an image called hexane.png. So that's being rendered. Okay. So you can use the metadata area as well to put in rich nodes inside cells of interest to you. Okay. All right. So that was a combination of rich text, which is a new feature, both as a standalone window or as text within a data cell and or label area cell. Okay. Any questions on that? Let me know if I'm going too fast. I can slow down. Okay, feel free to use the chat window or Q&A window. Okay. Let's go next to see this new feature of inserting images in graphs and notes. Okay. So we already saw inserting images in notes window. You can also insert images in graphs. So for example, I can type a text here. Okay, let me just make it a little larger so you can see it. Okay, and while I am in the in place editing mode, I can right click and there is now an insert menu. You can insert symbol map. You can insert variables from your import that you may have extracted. You can insert LaTeX equation like I showed before. You can also now insert images from file or from the web. So if I choose image from file, for example, I can choose this and it's rendered right there. Let me right click here and go to properties, and you will see that in the properties dialog, you can see the syntax. So there is a particular syntax that we use, /img parenthesis file, and then it's the path of the file. The path can be relative. I could put %x to pick the file from the same folder or subfolder underneath where the project is saved, etc. So you can play with you can read the documentation to learn more. What's nice about this is that a graph can even get images from a particular column. So in this case, I have a book here where I have some columns with data for hexane, isobutane, a few chemicals, and there happens to be images in these particular columns for each row. So what I have done here is I have plotted the mass versus the name, and I've used the label feature in origin to put the images instead of text right next to each data point. So let me just double click here to open plot details. And if I walk down to this particular data plot entry, you can go to the labels tab. And in the labels tab, you see I have a certain syntax here. Let me copy that syntax. So let me copy it out and I can put it in the notes window for you to see. Okay, so you can see it larger. Sorry, I should just use plain nodes, not rendered nodes. Okay, so you can see there's a certain notation called cell, book one, okay, sheet one, column, ball and stick model, $I. $I means from the ith row, and ball and stick model is just the name of that particular column, and it's sheet one of book one. So with this sort of syntax, you can pull images from columns in a worksheet and use them for annotating the data points in your graph. Okay? So that's a new syntax that we are supporting in this new version. Questions, comments? Feel free to ask questions. Okay, moving on. Another feature we implemented based on feedback from many users is importing GeoTIFF files into Origin. Okay, let me show a few quick examples. So what I have in this graph here, I have world rivers data, which I have imported from a certain free data source, world river shapefile. So we had the ability to import shapefiles in Origin since many versions ago. So I've just plotted the shapefile. Now I want to put a nice world map behind it. Okay, so let me open this folder. We are going to share this data with you so you can play with this file as well when you get the project and the files. So I already have a GeoTIFF file for the world map. I'm simply going to drag that file and drop it onto Origin, just in the outside of every window. What that does is it imports the GeoTIFF file into a new image window. The image window was introduced in a recent version of Origin. It can support videos, it can support images with multiple frames or image stack. In this case, it's a single image. This GeoTIFF image happened to have even the color definition, so a nice world map comes in. So then I can go to this graph and I can go to the insert menu and I can say insert image from image window. We also have map, insert map. We ship some basic map outlines in Origin. You can try that as well. So I'm going to choose image from image window, and Origin is picking up that image window which was active, and there are checkboxes to make it a layer background and rescale the layer using the image coordinates. Let me say yes to both of that, and there is my image. So now if I rescale my graph, you can see that the thing about GeoTIFF files is the coordinates, the dimensions are already baked in. So it nicely fit into this particular data set that I have of the world rivers. Then I can zoom into any particular region using the Z key or the A key, etc., to look at details. Okay. Another use of GeoTIFF files is I can bring in a GeoTIFF file, I can create a region of interest and take that piece of the image and make a matrix from it and make a 3D plot. Okay, and the project we share will have all the details on it so you can play with it. So once I make a 3D plot, I can interactively change this region of interest and my 3D plot will keep updating. So this is one nice way to take a very large GeoTIFF file and explore regions of it using a 3D view in Origin. Okay. GeoTIFFs is fairly new. If you are interested and you would like more features related to GeoTIFF, we would love to hear from you. Okay. Next feature, a simplified symbol map. So if I have a text object such as this, I can simply right click and choose Let me see. Insert menu, and there is symbol map. Previously, the symbol map was right in the main menu. Now we changed it to an insert menu with many different options, as you saw before: LaTeX, equation, and image from file, etc. So let me choose symbol map. This used to be a complex dialog. Okay, let me show you the old dialog. That's the advanced button. If I click the advanced button, this is the dialog that will come up. Okay, so this was somewhat clumsy. So I can switch back to the simple dialog. The nice thing about the simple dialog is there are a few clean tabs: Greek, math, European characters, arrow, miscellaneous, etc. We can add more tabs here if there are certain symbols that are popular in your field of work and you think they should be represented. A nice thing also is when I insert a particular item from here, I can also keep this dialog open while I insert. So I can go insert a Greek symbol, I can go insert a math symbol, and you will notice that recently used symbols will appear here. So those you have frequently used or recently used will appear here for quick access. Okay, so I close and there are my symbols. Okay, so hopefully this dialog will be more pleasant, easier to use for you. Okay. The next feature is distance annotation. So we added a new tool to mark distances in a graph. So let me show you a couple of examples here. Here I have a 2D plot. I want to mark the distance from this peak to here and also the height of that peak. Okay. So we have button here for arrow tool, and under the arrow tool we added a new button called distance annotation. So if I click that, it gives me a cursor. I can go place my cursor at the start point. Then I can hold the shift key, okay, and drag to create a perfectly horizontal line. Okay, if I don't hold the shift key, I can drag at an angle. Okay, so if you wish to just add a tool, an annotation like that at any angle, you do not hold the shift key. If you hold the shift key, it will force you to go either horizontal or vertical. So again, here I can hold the shift key and drag down to create a vertical annotation. Okay, you can then customize these. You can even do math inside these expressions to take the x and y, dx and dy values to compute something if you wish. It's documented, so you can read about it. Okay, let me show you the same thing on an image graph. So essentially this comes from an image window. I have an image window here where a certain image has been imported, and image windows can have calibration. I can set scale or set coordinates. You can view our documentation. We have videos on how to do this. This image has already been calibrated and plotted. So it's actually representing micrometers here in X and Y. Okay, because it's already calibrated, then I can use the distance annotation here, for example, to drag and add a particular annotation here to measure the distance in any particular direction that I like. So for example, if I want thickness of this particular unit, I can do that. And then you can double click, you can click to customize this. Okay, if you go to properties, there are many different properties. Whether do you want arrows and different positioning options that you have, those are all available to you. Okay, right click under properties. Okay, for example, I can go to the arrow and say I want this style of arrow. Okay, one that ends with a segment rather than an actual arrow. So you can do those kind of customization, change the size of the segments, color, etc. Okay, all right, questions, comments, please keep them coming. Next is named range improvements in this version. You may already know that in previous versions, you can click on any particular cell and click this particular button to define a name. You can give this a name such as my value. Okay, and then you can say, does it have the scope for the sheet or the book or the project? You can define it at different levels. Once you define, you can then use that to create calculations and set column values, etc., to refer to that cell. What we have done in this version is we have also made it possible to define names based on the label rows. So here I have a graph where there are some static values like lower limit and upper limit that I have keyed in. There is a target value that I have keyed in, but this mean is actually a computed mean. Okay. So for example, I can go here and I can run this laptop script. You can even run script from the new notes window with the rich text. You can see the data is changing and the mean value is shifting. And the way this graph was done is once you have defined the names, I had previously defined names for all of these, you can then use that in various places, including reference lines. Okay, so I'm double clicking here to open the Axis dialog. And under the Axis dialog, there is a reference line tab. This is not new, but what's new is that I can now define reference lines and have them come from named ranges. So I have a mean reference line, I have a lower limit reference line, I have an upper limit reference line, and these are all names I have defined from the book already. So Origin knows where to draw them. Okay. Okay. Let me show you a few more advanced examples where such name range can be used in regression. Okay. So here again, I have some ranges. I have named ranges. I have defined left x1, right x1 for the range of x1 and limits of the linear fit for this section, left and right for this section. Okay. Just before I change anything, I wanted to show you that under data menu, there is a name manager. So that's where all the names would be. This is not new. This was in previous version. So anytime you define a name, you can go here and delete it, change the scope, etc. So you can see I have previously defined all of these names. Okay. By clicking on a particular value and using this button, picking up the name from the left and the value from the right, etc. So now the nifty thing is I can go here and I can say change this to 5, and then Origin will change that limit and automatically update that fit. I can say change this to 6. So as I type in values, it's making changes to the operation, in this case the linear regression. Okay, so to see how this is working, let me double click and let me go here and let me open the linear regression dialog by changing parameters. Okay, this dialog you may already be familiar with. There are many features in this dialog, one of them being able to control the range of data set to be fit. You can set it to all or by row or by X. So I have set it to by X, but rather than key in specific values of X1 and X2, I have used the names left X2, right X2. So that makes it flexible for me to just go change these values in a control sheet, and that will then modulate my fitting accordingly. Okay. Show you another example with NL fit. Similarly, I have defined values here. So I can go here and change my X right to say 1100. In this case, my operation is not set to auto update. So the recalculate button is showing as yellow. I can click that, okay, to update it. Recently, we also added a pause auto recalculate button. If you click that, it will pause all operations in your project. So you can go ahead, change data. When you're ready, you can come here and unpause to make all the operations update. Okay, so let me go here and change the width. For example, I have set a width higher limit of 15. Let me go here and change that to 25. Okay, now you see that the fit will update again when I click this button. Okay, and to see how the controls work again, let me simply open the nonlinear curve fit dialog. Okay, so inside this dialog, you may already be familiar with this dialog. There is parameters tab, where rather than putting a fixed value, I can use a named range. In the bounds tab, rather than putting lower bounds and upper bounds as numeric values, I can use named range. So then I can control everything from outside, such as this sheet, rather than having to keep opening the dialog. So you could set up a template. Maybe you want to set up something simple to give to your technician. They don't need to open the dialog. They can simply change some parameters in the sheet itself and everything will update. Okay? Hopefully this is a valuable feature for you. Okay, one minor feature, there is an apps bar in Origin, which is docked on the left side, you can drag and pull it out if you want it to be floating. We made a minor change here. You can right click and you can say app icon spacing. You can increase or decrease the spacing between the icons to accommodate more icons in less space. We have users who have many apps installed. As you know, apps are all free to install. You can go here and click the Add Apps button and simply open the App Center and then select the app that you would like to install, and Origin will install for you. Apps essentially add more features to Origin. So for example, in recent version, we introduced GeoTIFF Export, Man-Kindle Test, Zoom FFT, metrics analysis, radiometric geochronology analysis, an app for tangential baseline, color spectrum plot, okay, Hansen solubility parameter, etc. So we keep adding apps. There are over 300 plus apps available. Each app has a minimum version requirement. For example, this requires 2019 SR0. This requires 2022 BSR0. Some are specific to Pro. Some can be used on Pro or Origin. Okay. So depending on what version you have and whether it's Pro or standard, you can download and install apps. Okay. Next, new graphs. Okay, so let's take a look at the new graphs that have been implemented in this version. Let me dock the app window back here and hide it. Okay, in Origin, under the help menu, you have a learning center, F11. So if you press that, the learning center opens, and this is a good place to go if you're fairly new to Origin and you want to learn. Just browse and see what kind of graphs are possible, what analysis samples exist, okay, and also other learning resources such as beginning tutorials, videos, a link to all the videos, YouTube channel, our technical blog, user forum, etc. Okay, then we go to graph samples, and here I can type in my version. I have typed 2022B and search. Then it shows me all the new graph types that have been added in this version. So for example, this is a categorical plot called circular packing graph. So if I want to explore it, I can click on that and click OK. Origin will append it as a new folder in my project, and our sample graphs all come with data and detailed notes on how to create. Okay, so you could explore these to learn more about each new graph type that we have introduced. All the graph types are also listed in this particular page, in the highlights page that I showed earlier. You can go here as well to browse and see there is a spiral bar chart that we implemented, different variations of spiral bar chart. There is a right triangle and equilateral triangle ternary plot. There is a new bar map plot. So if we have data that's location specific and multivariate data. So here, for example, it's the consumption of different foods in different countries in Europe. You can place bar plots at the specific latitude, longitude locations on a graph. And you can pull in a GeoTIFF file in the background. You can bring in Google Map import image, whatever you like to annotate your graph. Okay. There is a circular packing graph. Okay. Also, I want to point out inside Origin, if you go to the Tools menu, we also have a Template Center. So if you click on Template Center, you can download new graphs or new workbooks. Okay, so we put some templates here as well. So these are not necessarily new graph types, but they are variations of existing graph. So for example, somebody wanted to create a delineate triangulation plot with simple 2D data. We made a template for that. Okay, here is a Gantt chart template. Okay, so this may be a useful resource as well. You can go here and download templates from this location as well. Simply you click the button to download a particular template. Okay, then that gets added to your collection and it becomes available in Origin. Let me take a moment to show you where that becomes available. So if I make a book active, and then if I go to my plot menu, there is a template library tool. This is not new. It was introduced in the previous version. We made quite a few improvements to this tool. So here we can see system templates. You can see your user templates, or you can see the extended templates. So the extended templates are the ones that you download from the template center. So for example, here I had downloaded the Scholar diagram. If I hover on it, it will show me a picture. If I select it And if I say open sample, it'll again open a sample for me with suitable data. So you can play with the data and see how the plot was created. So not only do we have new graph types each version, we also keep adding new templates, and new templates can be added anytime because they are downloadable from the cloud. So if you have certain graph templates in your field of work that you feel others would benefit by us making a template, we are happy to create that and put it up. So anyone can go to the template center and download them. Okay. And then new apps, I already showed you the App Center. These are the new apps that were published along with this version. We also publish apps during the interval between two versions. So keep coming back and checking for apps. Most of the apps we publish were created based on user requests. So if there is a certain type of graph, a certain type of import, certain type of computation, whatever it is that you feel Origin is missing, we can make an app for you. And the beauty of the app is it can be released anytime. It doesn't have to wait for the next version of Origin. Okay, so feel free to reach out to us with suggestions for apps. Okay, there are also some other key features in this version. Let me just scroll to the bottom of the highlights page that I showed you. Again, to get to the highlights page, you can go to originlab.com and simply click on the new version icon, and all the details are there. Let me scroll way to the bottom and you will see a section here called other features. So there are some bullet points here that with specific features that specific users asked. For example, somebody wanted to customize the dash line, so we added that customization option. Okay. We added more features for mini toolbars for legends. Okay. Hotkey and button for pause and recalculation, like I talked about before. So many new features apart from the key features that I showed you. Okay. Again, this particular project and the recording and the data will be shared with you. You will get an email with details. That's pretty much what I wanted to show you for today. Thank you for listening. Hope you would find this version to be exciting and many of the features to be useful. I'll leave the Q&A and chat open for a few minutes. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, thank you for attending. You all have a good rest of the day. Thank you.